In this video, we're going to talk about what inverse functions look like when we look at them on a graph. So recall that x and y values are flipped around between a function and its inverse. And so when we graph it, you're actually going to see there is a reflection that we see between the two graphs, and it's along the line y equals x. So let's go ahead and look at an example here. We've got this general function with three line segments that are connected. We're going to evaluate a few points first. So at f of negative 5, that's saying x equals negative 5. So we go negative 5 here, that's this point on our graph, and that gives us a y value of negative 4. So f of negative 5 equals negative 4, which points out the point negative 5 comma negative 4. At f of 0, we have a y value of negative 1, so that's the point 0, negative 1. Now, inverse of our function f at an x value of 4. Well, this actually isn't an x value, because remember, inverse functions, we flip the x and y values around. So if this said f of 4 equals, we'd go to x equals 4. But since this is an inverse, 4 is our y value. So we go to a y value of 4. That gives us this point and gives us an x value of 2. So that's the point 2, 4. And f inverse of negative 4, go to negative 4 here. And that's this same point that we had before with an x value of negative 5. So notice how for this point here, negative 5, negative 4, f of negative 5 is negative 4, and f inverse of negative 4 equals negative 5. So that's that kind of back and forth that an inverse, or that a function has with its inverse. So now let's, these are our three of our four main points on our graph. I'm going to put this other point here. Okay, so we can just figure out where the inverses of these 4 points go, and then just we know that there are straight lines connecting those, so we can go ahead and add those lines later. So this point here that we hadn't found yet was negative 7, negative 7. Well, you flip those two numbers around and it gives you the same point. So f inverse is going to start here. This was negative 5, negative 4 right here. So we flip those two numbers around and we get negative 4, negative 5. So slightly different spot. This point here was 0, negative 1. So we flip that around, we get negative 1, 0. And then this point here was at 2, 4. So now we get 4, 2. And now I can go ahead and connect my points. And you're going to see a very similar pattern here. So if we kind of tilt this on its side, we see a pattern here that we can kind of cut right down the middle here. Okay, so we've got f inverse here is reflected across the line y equals x, this line that has a slope of 1 that goes right through the origin 0, 0. Okay, so anytime you see a function and you have to graph its inverse, you can reflect it across that line. I prefer to find those key points and just make sure that I'm flipping the x and y values around. And that's actually the same with our domain and range. We flip the x and y values around. So the domain and range of f of x, well, it goes from negative 7 to 2 for our x value. So our domain is negative 7 to 2. And then our range, it goes from negative 7 up to 4. So our range is negative 7, negative 7, 4. So then our domain and range for our inverse, well, remember we just flip x and y around. So that's kind of the same here. Domain is x, range is y, so we flip those values around. And our domain is for f inverse is the range from f, and vice versa for the range of inverse and domain for our original function.